Hello leaders, and welcome to another Mr. Heads Up video to give you some experiences about my life as a school CEO and principal. I apologize, it's been a really long time since I've made my last video, a few months actually, and I've had a few leaders or aspiring leaders contact me on LinkedIn as well as on YouTube to say, look, it's been a long time, what's happening? And sometimes in order for me to be able to give my advice to others, I have to really be able to deliver on my own KPIs. And the last year really has been that introspective focus on my school community and the company I'm part of, and really had to deliver. And now that I'm able to do some of those things, I'm able to perhaps share my experiences, and it's not just theoretical or hypothetical or estimates. I'm actually basing it on fact of what I've been able to deliver. Now, I've got lots of different topics I'd like to discuss, and hopefully I can be more frequent and genuinely give advice, and even if it's a handful of aspiring leaders or perhaps actually leaders in schools, then my work here is done. So today's topic is about if you are considering a school principalship, you're a head of school, you're a head teacher, and you're looking to become the CEO of a larger school. What type of school should it be? Now, I've been fortunate enough in the last 11 years to oversee a number of startups. So I've done 2 startups, and now I'm looking at a third one that I'm part of. And I've been part of one turnaround as a school CEO, turning a school around. That's an existing school that I went into, my existing school in fact, in a very large school, nearly 3,000 students when I joined it 3 years ago. So I want to share my experience. Again, everything I discuss is my opinion, you may have your own. And the key differences between startups, be it brownfield site, greenfield site, and turnarounds, and what is my opinion about both of them, and my advice, anyone considering going in as a principal of a startup school, what to consider, some points, so I keep the video short, and perhaps some points for you to consider if you're looking to go into and be part of a turnaround. And it's important, whatever you choose, you are successful in that. You do not want to be have a failed tenure or not be able to deliver. It's really important for your career that you make the right choice, and some things will help you make that. So let me look at my notes. So the first thing really, let's just talk about startups. In order to be part of any startup, you have to be a self-starter. You may be part of a company, an investor, like for example, a small investor, a single owner school, and it'll all come down to you. All the pressure will be localized on what you want to do, and you have to make the right decisions all the time. So to do that, you have to be good at paperwork. Doing startups, you have to be able to write policies, documentation, strategic documentations, the approvals for the regulators. So for example, the academic plan that they'll ask for. An academic plan could be anything between 70 and 150 pages. Not everyone has a budget to outsource it because it costs thousands and thousands of dollars. So you need to be able to have the ability to do these write-ups. You need to be able to have the ability to be able to complete all the policies that are required for that regulator in order to get the approval. Okay, so that's really important. If you're not good at documentation, or if you don't have the eye and the attention for detail, and you cannot cope with that level of pressure, it will be a challenge for you if you're looking at going into a startup as your first principalship. Okay, so it can be very lonely in particularly startups, in my experience. The next thing is you need to be organized. To do a startup, very different to anything I've come across, that you have to be someone that is organized and lets nothing slip. You've heard the analogy of the spinning plates, but here you don't know what plates need to spin, so you need to compartmentalize everything that you need to do. Be it, there'll be a point where you've got to have a meeting about the marketing of how you're going to really brand this new school. Another point, you're talking about the enrollments of how you're going to get students into, and the sales funnel into this new school that is yet to exist. Another point, perhaps you're talking to contractors of what the site and the facilities need to look like in this new school. Another point, you're looking at speaking to the regulator to do the academic plans, whilst you're looking at recruitment, whilst you're talking about financial budgets and what that's going to look like pre-ops and beyond that particular point, whilst you're speaking to perhaps your head office or the general manager if it's a smaller organization and seeing what they need to do to support you whilst you're trying to pick out the furniture for your classrooms and the resources for those classrooms and the IT infrastructure that you need to have, etc., etc. I can go on for hours when it comes to this. All of this is on you, so ultimately you have to be a really strong project manager in itself to organize this. So whatever way you do that, be it a Sage spreadsheet or a program, or be it some other way, you need to be really organized. If you're not, you need to very quickly learn how to organize yourself better when you're looking at particularly startups. Something else, you have to have the ability to be able to take calculated risks. So if you're a new to market, a new type of curriculum into the market or new type of school and no one knows you, you have to be able to stand out from well-established schools. There may be schools in your region, in your catchment area that have been around for 10, 15, 20, 30 years that are reputable schools that parents know and want to go to. So what makes you unique and makes you stand out and they come to you. So something to do that, you have to take calculated risks. And this goes to my next point. You need to have market awareness. You need to understand your competitors in great detail. Everything about your competitors you need to understand, because you're going to compete with them in a professional manner. But the reality is, for your school to survive and for your principalship to be successful, you need to be able to understand who your closest competitors are, what their curriculum offering is, what type of model they follow, what type of staffing they have in the school, what their times are, what type of events, activities happen in the school, what type of demographic they have. Do you share that same demographic with them in terms of the residence units around your particular area? Would you be competing for the same, or are you actually part of another community and therefore not necessarily impacted by them, etc., etc.? Know the other schools, know the market very, very well. Unique selling points, USPs. You talk about in business, but schools have USPs. What makes you unique? What makes this new school that you're going to start up one that parents will say, you know what, I want to go to that school, that's different, I want my child to have that. And you really need to consider what that particularly looks like. Then once you've got this, how do you bottle this up and how do you source it and sell it and make it desirable to the market? So your marketing, your branding, your advertising is really, really important in a startup to get that message across. In a turnaround, necessarily is not as important, because you will have some market recognition. People will know your school, and now they may know it for a good reason or a bad reason, but the reality is they will know your school. But a new school coming in, new entry into this particular market of education, you need to invest amount of money in marketing and in branding and get a PR team if you have to. So that might be, for example, you don't have much money in your budget because it's a single school, so you might be contacting various organizations and conferences out there and speaking in these particular conferences and getting your school across and getting yourself known in the education community. You may do that. You might write particular blogs and get your message across there about education and what your school would stand for, in particular, press releases, etc., etc. You may have to focus on online advertising, such as Google advertising and various other SEOs and various websites that perhaps will make a particular difference. There's lots of free forums out there as well as paid forums that you could be part of. There may be word of mouth and recommendations that you get the word particularly across. So sometimes you have to invest initially in the marketing advertising to get the message across about what you represent as a school, this new school, but also to attract enrollments. It's really important to do that, so to put that into your pre-ops budget itself. And finally, you need to have a business head. Many head teachers I come across, they come from an education background, they've been in school maybe 10, 15 years, but when it comes to the CEO part, and when you're running a startup school, you are the CEO. You are the business head. So you need to have a business head and consider the balance sheet, consider the profit and loss, ensure that the investors, whoever they may be it shareholders or a single owner, are looked after whilst not compromising on your educational values that you are instilled within you. You need to be good at business to be able to do this and ensure you're serving all these masters, if you will. That's a startup. Then a turnaround. Now, I came into this school 3 years ago, and I have to tell you, turnarounds, particularly in a large size, again, so this is my first point, what type of turnaround is it? Is it a small school of 400 or 500 that you're a head teacher of a secondary school or a primary school, or is it an all-through school? Okay, because of different aspects. You might be a secondary trained specialist or a primary trained specialist, so you straight away have that particular disadvantage. You have to become a bit more of a well-rounder. Once you understand that, what type of, how many numbers are in the school? Is it an all-through school with 3,000, for example, here? And how long has it been established? For example, this had been around for a number of years, 4 or 5 or 6 years when I came, 2014 established. So there's legacy in that school. We've always done it this way. What's the problem? What's the change? Why change, etc., etc. Very different kettle of fish to a startup. Difficult, but in a different way. So when I came in here, some of the things from my experience, I would say you need to understand is, if you take on a principalship, whilst you're aspirational, you really want to take this principalship on, what you have to consider is you have to go into it with your eyes wide open, because you want to ensure you do not fail this school community and you do not fail yourself, because this is your career as well. So go in there knowing, are you up to the task? Not eager and dedicated, but do you have the skill set to be able to turn this school around positively? Or are you going to widen that gap further and have that honest conversation with yourself? Okay, really important to have that truthful conversation. Do I have the skill set to turn around a school of 3,000 or not? And if the answer is I'm not sure, then perhaps do not consider that principalship. Wait for the next opportunity and take something more realistic that you were able to achieve and succeed in. Okay, these last 3 years, as successful as it has been, it just took chunks out of me, to be quite honest, at the amount of pressure, not by my colleagues and my line managers and the company, who were absolutely amazing, that I placed on myself as a self-regulator to get it done. Okay, so you have to go into it with your eyes wide open. You have to be patient. You cannot apply what you did in another school as a head teacher or as a vice principal. I think the same thing will work here. Just because I, for example, introduced Read Write as a synthetic phonics program in my last 3 schools doesn't mean it works here. Just because I did something for another particular curriculum type or a certain type of a head teacher in the schools, or this was my model for my staffing, or this was my model for my timetabling, doesn't necessarily mean it will work here. You have to be patient, you have to truly understand the school, but then also you've got your KPIs. The bottom line is this thing of what will you do in the first 100 days. You'll be doing a lot more. You can't just be observing around for 100 days. Because, for example, in a school like this, if you're in Dubai, you may come into a school and in 8 to 10 months down the line, or maybe 6 months down the line, you have an inspection. And if you fail at that inspection, you will have a problem as well. So you have to quickly move on, but you have to be patient in certain parts, which goes into the next point is, do you become a surgeon when it's a turnaround, or an architect? In some parts, when I came in here, my approach, I prefer to be an architect and build it over time, but you may not have the privilege of time, and the community deserves to have good or better schools. So you can't always be an architect in a community that's fast paced. Sometimes you have to be a surgeon. So for example, in my school here, when it came to certain departments, certain areas that had a really wide gap, I had to be a surgeon. And I had to cut certain things out and replace them and make the decisions for those particular departments, and also replace staffing. And I make no apologies for that, because that's what was required. And other parts, I could allow it to take a little longer and support and coach and nurture and be that particular architect. So I had to be both things. It's not one or the other. Sometimes you have to be more than one, and perhaps consider that as well. You will have to be resilient in a turnaround, and you have to very quickly overcome any imposter syndrome that you might have, or any self-doubt. You cannot have any self-doubt when you're in or show it when you're in a turnaround school, because everyone relies on you. So it's a case of when others fail before you, the principals, why would you succeed? You have to calculate and think and put yourself forward of what decisions you're particularly going to make, and be resilient and ensure those decisions are the right decisions. And you will have to gradually build excellence within that particular school. So it's the Goldilocks effect, getting it just right, not too fast, not too slow, the right pace. And sometimes you'll push and you feel as though it's not going the right way and you'll back off, and sometimes you'll be slow and you need to speed up. And you're constantly moving these levers to ensure the school continuously changes and turns around. But be strategic throughout the whole process. If you are so engrossed in doing everything instructionally, you cannot step away and see if it's having an impact. So you have to have the ability to step away. I was far more instructional in this school in my first year, less so in my second, and now perhaps I'm stepping away, and my team, my colleagues, my other executive leaders in my school are running the school. I'm able to do that, and therefore I have time to support other parts of my organization here, for example. I could not have done that 3 years ago, and I remember telling my line managers, listen, I need to focus on my own house. The first 12 months, leave me alone, allow me to do what I need to do, and after that, I'll come to you to work more beyond in the wider community. So you have to have the ability and the emotional intelligence to know when you need to focus and be instructional and when you need to be transformational, and you will be coming in and out of this. This video is a little longer than I normally try to have them, but there's a lot of information here. I could talk about this topic for hours, but I promise you, everything I tell you is based on my experience, and it's successfully being able to start up schools and successfully being able to turn around schools and had a positive outcome. And I'm here to tell the tale, a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit more tired, but hopefully this video helps you, gives you food for thought, if you will, if not anything else. Please do share this video for anyone that you feel it will benefit. Like, subscribe, and there'll be lots more videos that I'll make in the future. Thank you very much.